Alright, let's look at few endgames with the king stuck in front of their pawn. They'd like to promote the pawn, but the rook's there, so the king is imprisoned. So only wait for white to ever make progress here is to somehow free the king by moving the rook somewhere. Here the king is all the way to f7, which makes a difference. Let's start with the rook c2. Also rook h2 is the perfectly fine way to win. The same idea, but this is maybe more instructional, since there is a pitfall we should avoid here is the rook c7. Even though it looks very good, we go there with check. What can be wrong? Is that there is a rook c1, and that's our king did not get freed, because this actually leads to a checkmate. And moving the rook away anywhere there is gonna allow the king to reach the c8. Now the king is actually stuck there in the corner, and this is the perfect setup where you have a rook on the file guarding the king from the checks from this side. You can just move the king between these two squares, and if, for instance, white would play rook here, then we have a lot of rook moves to wait with here. There is no way to break this setup. So here white is supposed to play rook c8 instead. The idea that we get here, and then king d7 is a little less challenging way to fight from black. So let's look at this first. Rook b8 frees the king. Now let's say rook goes here. But this is why the rook king d7 is a little less challenging, since it allows the king to run away towards the center. The pawn is protecting the rook. And now we are gonna zigzag away. Just avoid a file and getting skewered and losing the pawn. Eventually black's gonna run out of checks and white promotes and wins. But here king d6 is a little more challenging. Same rook b8 frees the king. Rook a1. Now the king runs here. Now you see the difference is that the zigzagging won't lead anywhere, because you eventually, well, wherever you go, cannot really get away from the a file without dropping the pawn. So you can't run this way. So I have to eventually run to the back rank. And here black's gonna give a check. This is not gonna make any progress, so king has to run here and then run king rook h1. And now the point is that if white promotes, there's a checkmate here. Oh no. And another point is that if king tries to run away from the checkmate, black has check and pick up the pawn. So there is only one way for white to make progress here, is to give a check here. Here too early would be the rook a6, even though it looks really good. Black can give a lot of checks, and actually he can kick the king so far away. So if you try to run this way, you lose the rook, so get the king all the way to the 7th rank, and then we just go under the pawn. And now if the king tries to come back, we can attack the rook and the pawn, and then next move pick that up. So that is too early from white to go under the pawn. So here he has to play the rook c6 first, with the idea that if black takes it, then we promote, pick up the rook here. And let's say you run this way, taking away this rook a6 idea. If you run this way, then rook a6 is just a very easy way to win. Gonna again zigzag out of checks, and well, run this way. Not really zigzagging anywhere, but now next is going to be promotions and win. So here a little more challenging is king b5, but then this is good enough. Maybe the more challenging here is to give a check there, but we just go here and now it's almost a mate. I mean, I guess we could promote a rook and allow checkmate here, but we probably would promote to a queen and guard this square and win the game easily. Queen up. If you'd move the king, one move this way and the rook one move this way. So it's closer to these squares here. It's already a draw. For instance, rook gets here, the king just runs towards these squares here. Just go here and then stick the rook here and we can already reach easily the setup we wanted, where black's king is going to stay between these two squares and the king is permanently stuck in the corner and the rook guards us from the checks. So as a defender, you are supposed to, with the king stuck in the corner, you're supposed to get very close to it. And as a, well, it matters as like how far the king is from the reaching these squares here. And let's look at a little more complicated thing, where the king is not already caught in the corner, like there's still ways to get out of there. Here, for instance, white to move rook f6 just kicks the king away from the ideal squares. Here, for instance, rook f1 doesn't really make any progress since you're stuck there, and we already know from the previous examples, like this is not going to make any progress if you shut yourself down there in the corner, because that was the only way to make any progress, and the king is already way too close. So that's not a challenging way to play at all. So rook g6 makes a lot more sense. And then rook g4. And now the point is that if the king moves away, trying to free the pawn to move, we're just gonna check and check until the king goes back in front of the pawn. Let's say, well, he has to go eventually there. Now this doesn't draw away the draw, but it's maybe unnecessary. Here, of course, we don't take and allow the easy win. And here again, we don't take and allow this where white actually promotes. But here you can play rook f1 and still hold the draw. And now if you move the pawn, there is the rook check here. And after this, you do not take the rook because the promotions wins. You're gonna give it another check, and white can't really leave the rook alone, because with the king takes, black's gonna win. And let's say any other move is just gonna be a rook check, and now if you don't go there, then the black king is gonna run into the corner there, so like here with the blank pawn, there's just no progress to be made in this way. And if you run the king there, we're just again, we can keep you cut there, so eventually you have to go back, and just gonna be a repetition of the before. So after this, well, eventually you are gonna run out of ways to make progress here. Like here, you already shut your king down in the corner. So other way here, instead of trying to move the rook king, is to the rook runs down somewhere. Some freedom for the king. Then we can move the king towards the... Cut him there. Let's say here. Just gonna keep the rook on this file, and again, can't really make any progress here. If the king tries to run away, we again give a check here. And again, threatening to run in front of the pawn and hold easily. So here, this is perhaps the only trying to free the king. But here you have a, well, maybe rook f1 is too. You can also give a check here, because now if the king goes here, we can actually take the rook, and this is ends up in a drawn pawn endgame. And if the king goes back there, not really making any progress. Again, here we don't take, of course, because the king is covering both squares already. And white's not making any progress here. King is still stuck, and we haven't made any forward movement. Alright, 3 of those. I mean, the difference, if these are winning or not, is that how well situated the defender's king is. Alright, until next time. Bye bye.